Okay, here's a little April Material Girls Club overview. So we're gonna start in about an hour, and what we're making this time around is these little woven like cards. So I have all this glitter paper and you can choose different colors, weave it together and write a note on the back. And I put little gems on mine as well. Tables are looking very cute. I love to set out all my little glittery materials. And very kindly, Living Things, which is like a prebiotic soda brand, sent us some soda for everyone to have. And I love their branding. How cute is that? So everyone gets a can and everyone gets one of these. Well, that's a Material Girl sticker. And I also made these little flyers because I'm being such a good business bitch. Because I feel like Material Girls has a lot of different like aspects of the community going on. And I didn't really have something that put them all in one place so people can like, you know, figure out all the ways to be involved. So on the back, it has some pictures of stuff that we do and then QR codes to everything. So the magazine, workshops, group chat, meme page, all in one place. So everyone's gonna get one of those today. And hopefully if anyone is new here, even people like sometimes people come to the clubs and then I'll say like, oh, there's a group chat with 1,700 people in it. And they'll say like, oh, where do I join that? So now you know, very effective of me, very cute. One more look at the tables. I feel like this is one of the cutest ones so far with everything all coming together. And of course, I have this big like tinsel stuff that I put up as well because we are in a conference room. Gotta make it cute. Let's gossip. I have to do my nails. I tried new nail polish remover this morning and it turned the ends of my fingers red when I was taking off my red nail polish, which is bad news for me because I was going to film some tutorials today. Hopefully I can scrub it off in time, but I wanted to chat about some recent disappointments. Freelance wise, I'm not gonna name drop, but I do think it's important to talk about these things, especially in like a creative space. I know a lot of creative people watch these videos and I feel like I learned a lot in the past week about how to like not get taken advantage of and red flags and whatever, and I want you guys to know about those things too and not get into a deal like this. What happened is this organization had been like on my radar for a while. They seemed really cool, did cool stuff, and they reached out to me and said that they wanted to do this like video opportunity together. So I said, cool, let's do it. We agreed on a budget. Frankly, there were some red flags like from the start that I should have noticed, which were that they contacted me like 48 hours before it was supposed to happen and admitted that like the person who was supposed to do it dropped out. Got to the shoot day and the person who was supposed to be leading it was hours late and there was no script. Anyway, we do the shoot and at the end of the day, I asked the person in charge like, okay, so we agreed on this budget. How should I invoice you? Should I invoice you and your company, or should I invoice like the company we were doing these videos for? And they said, invoice me. Great. And on the same day, we had had a conversation about potentially hosting a workshop in their space, which I was super excited to do. At this point, it seemed like we were very much on the same page, and they said, you know, we're opening this new workshop space. We want this to be like an accessible place for artists to do community art projects. And they were speaking my language, right? They were like, we want to fairly pay creatives. We want to create accessible spaces, not only for like people who are facilitating workshops, but also for people to be able to come to affordable creative workshops. And I was like, great, that's why I do all of this too. And it's a big challenge because space in London is so expensive. Like whenever I do a workshop, a huge chunk of the money does go to just like paying for the room to do it in. So I was totally on board. I was like, we can have a fruitful relationship here. You seem cool. I think our vibes match. So in the conversation of invoices, I also said, okay, so tonight I'm gonna set up a ticket link. I'm gonna send you assets. Like for this workshop, we agreed we were gonna cross promote it. I thought we were all set and I go home and I do that. I send over an invoice with a standard 30-day due date on it. I send over a ticket link that I had created. I send over a bunch of assets explaining what the workshop is going to be, graphic design, like videos and examples of past workshops so that people in the new space, the new community can like get a vibe for what we do at Material Girls. And then I don't hear from them for a month. They hear from me within that month. I reached out multiple times over email, Instagram message. I even hopped into their like company messaging system, which I am unclear why I was ever like on that, but I covered my bases. I sent multiple messages on every platform that I could possibly contact them on, right? Then it coincides that the week of the workshop is also the week that my invoice is due. So at the beginning of the week, I send another email, like, my invoice is due in a few days, like, could you please confirm that you received this and that it's on its way to being paid? Like, I'm sure we would both love to avoid late fees. Additionally, like, I'm a bit worried about the status of this workshop, considering that like none of the cross promotion we agreed on has happened, and that I like haven't heard from you in a while. It's really important to me that like we get some questions that I have sorted before doing this. Don't hear back for another couple of days, and then it's like 72 hours before the workshop is supposed to happen. My invoice is now overdue. Reach out with an email with an updated invoice and say, hi, like my invoice is overdue. I've attached a new invoice with the associated late fees. Additional late fees are the questions that I have about the workshop this weekend. In the email I say, if I don't hear back from you by 6 p.m. tonight, I'm canceling the workshop. I was really conflicted by that because obviously I didn't want to cancel the workshop. Like I was looking forward to it happening, but mostly I didn't want to like disappoint people who had booked for it. And I just felt kind of like embarrassed and like, did I handle this the right way? Is that the right thing to do? I know I'd be more embarrassed if I brought people who had like taken time out of their day and paid for tickets to a workshop that like wasn't happening or wasn't up to the standards of what like Material Girls usually puts on. I think I did make the right decision canceling it, but I felt really bad. And like, if you're someone who had a ticket to that, I want to apologize for like the vague ass email about it not happening. When I sent it and canceled the workshop, I didn't know like the appropriate way to talk about what had happened, and I didn't want to like very obviously throw anyone under the bus. But if you're watching this and you know like what I'm talking about, I'm just really sorry that it went down like this. But anyway, I don't hear anything back. I cancel the workshop. I went through all the stages of grief, right? Like I'm feeling, first of all, just like sad and disappointed, embarrassed, angry, because I feel like an opportunity was taken away. Like I had held up my end of the bargain. I was doing a lot of marketing. I made all the assets. I was running all the ticketing. Like I was so ready to put on this event and had no support from the other side whatsoever. So I was like angry about that. And then they start messaging back. And I enter my, I'm such a bad bitch, what are you trying to pull here era. So they end up responding to me via Instagram, 10 p.m. the night before the workshop was supposed to happen. Oh, sorry to miss all these messages. Like, yep, we're ready for the workshop to go on. And I will never fucking forget this. And this is when I ascended into like what the hell territory. The next message just said, so sorry for the unprofessionalism, heartbreak emoji. I haven't been paid for a project that happened over a month ago. I had to cancel the workshop, disappoint, and embarrass myself in front of my community, lose out on all of that ticket revenue, even though I had spent a month getting ready for this workshop and banking on this being a part of my income. And you are sending me heartbreak emojis, so sorry for the unprofessionalism. And I messaged back, as stated in my email, I canceled the workshop on Thursday evening. And we start going back and forth, and I'm really proud of how I handled myself. They were just immediately so defensive and like, oh, well, we've been getting this together, so we've been busy. And it's like, well, first of all, since when can you be so busy that you just like don't answer an email for 30 days? Like that's just bad business, and that's not my fault that you had whatever big project going on. It doesn't mean that you can just say, oh, actually Alexa's gonna handle that all on her own and we're gonna text her back 10 hours before the workshop. Like that is not an excuse. And then they start pulling this whole like, well, we're a charity, so you know it's hard for us to access these funds, blah, blah, blah. Which again, I'm just like, that's bad business. Like just because you're a charity doesn't mean that you can hire people, say you're gonna pay them a certain amount, and then say, actually, we can't. That's not how it works. And just because you have a big project going on doesn't mean you can say, oh, well, sorry, we didn't get back to you in 30 days, we were working on something. Like that is just not, that's not how I work at least. And I'm proud to say that. I myself, I was advocating for myself. It was all very matter of fact, and I still felt so bitchy, and I don't know, it was just such a hard feeling, because I was like, I know that I'm being very matter of fact. Like I purposely took all emotion out of my messages. I rarely even said like, I'm disappointed in how this went. I literally was just like, my invoice was due this day, like here's an updated one. We said we were gonna cross promote, we didn't. Like I said, I needed to hear from you by this time, and we didn't. Like it was very much laying out the facts, and I just felt like it was met with this energy of like, why the fuck are you asking for all this? So we go back and forth a bit. I'm not really asking for anything at this point except to like, I paid on my original invoice, and they end up paying my invoice like 2 days later. So they did have the money, and I thought we had kind of just like left it at that, you know, like obviously I wasn't too impressed with this place. I didn't have big plans to like reach out and work together again. And then they follow up with this gaslighty ass email. And they said the reason that we're not paying your late fees is because your invoice like didn't have the correct dates on it. We explained what dates should be on it in our meeting prior to the video shoot. I was not in a meeting prior to the video shoot. As I said, I was onboarded like 48 hours before this was meant to happen. Maybe they had a meeting, maybe they explained it to whoever was supposed to be in my place. It was not explained to me, but I can't accommodate that after the due date because you didn't check your emails to see that it wasn't invoiced in the right way. Also, don't gaslight me and say that I was in a meeting that I wasn't, and so I should have this information. And then about the workshop, I had made it clear to them that I had to refund all the tickets out of my own pocket, and I didn't ask them to cover those late fees because frankly, I was just trying to like end the back and forth and not talk to them. I knew they weren't gonna pay them, so I didn't ask for that. But they still in the email fucking twisted the knife and said, we will not be refunding your late fees because you didn't reach out to us in our preferred method. And then they cited their company messaging system, which, as I said before, I did reach out on and had shown them screenshots of me reaching out on. So again, don't gaslight me and say that I didn't reach out to you on this preferred method. Also, it was never communicated to me that that was the preferred method and the only way to reach them. And again, I say that's just bad business. Like, you can't not pay people because they didn't communicate with you on the specific internal messaging system that you didn't tell them to communicate on. Like, if I've reached out in like a dozen different ways on multiple platforms, you can't say, well, we're not going to pay you because you didn't message us in the right specific place, even though, again, I fucking did. It makes me mad. Like I said, I've oscillated between being like very disappointed about this, feeling very taken advantage of, feeling like a god because I would never do business like this. Honestly, at this point, I'm not even super activated about the late invoice. What I'm activated about is them like gaslighting me, saying that I was given information that I wasn't, that I was in meetings that I wasn't, and that's why I didn't get paid on time. But late invoices, like, that's just part of freelancing. Every time I don't get paid on time, I learn something new that I put into my base contracts to make them more airtight. But what's especially disappointing is that this is an organization that I thought I was really aligned with. They really fronted with this really ethical, we do this all fairly, we're not going to take you on a ride like these other companies would way. And then they fucking took me for a ride. And it felt like in the end, you know, they were aware of my work. They were aware that the workshops I do in Brixton are successful. They sell out, have an engaged community, and they wanted access, which to some extent is fine. Like, if this was truly going to be a mutually beneficial operation where, like, yeah, I bring an engaged community to their space and they, you know, get introduced to new people and they get new paying customers, that's beneficial for them. It would have been beneficial for me to have an organization that I could partner with to more affordably put on workshops like this. Could have been really mutually beneficial. I would have been happy to build community together if it was mutually beneficial. But what happened was that I did all the work and then took the whole blow for it. Like, I feel like I embarrassed myself in front of my community. I feel like I disappointed my community who I promised something to. I lost money out of my own pocket. I got paid late on a different thing. I wasted a month getting ready for something that didn't end up happening because they couldn't send a fucking email, and then they want to say that it's my fault. I feel very lucky to work in the creative space, and I've met some amazing creatives in London who genuinely do care about community and who do want to create accessible community spaces, and I'm so inspired by them and so lucky when I get to work with them. The majority of times I work with people, it's great. I don't know, you really have to stand up for yourself doing freelance stuff. I think sometimes I'm a little too eager and like, oh, they want to work with me, that's so exciting, like someone wants to work with me. And I feel like I need to remind myself, like, no, I'm a professional, I'm good at what I do. People can tell that what I'm doing is going well, and it goes well because I hold it to high standards, because I work hard on it, because I make sure that it goes well. And I can't be teaming up with people who aren't on that same level, because it's a disservice to like the community and the kind of community I want to be building. And I don't want to put material girls in a space where you're getting shoddy events because I'm working with people who can't fucking answer an email. Like, I'm not gonna do that to y'all, okay? So what would I do differently? I'm gonna put communications expectations in my contract from now on. And I've seen some other freelancers do stuff like that, and it's usually to prevent companies from asking them to have like 10 meetings in a week. I feel like I kind of saw the other side of that, where it's like, I need a sign of life from you in 30 days. Like, we're going to consider this workshop canceled if I don't hear from you in 2 weeks. And there's going to be a kill fee associated with that. Like, if I've already put X amount of work in it, you need to pay me X amount of what would have been made on this. And one more thing that I'm just thinking about when it comes to like these organizations, and especially like charity organizations that I think try to take advantage of artists and be like, but we're just a charity. First of all, if you're a board, you have more power than me. Like I'm a one-woman show, you have a board, and you're trying to act like you're the one who's being taken advantage of here. I want to keep working with organizations like this. I want to work with community arts organizations, but I don't want to be taken for a fucking ride. I think this like helped me feel a bit more powerful. Like I said, I feel like a strong businesswoman. Like I know what I'm doing and I'm doing it well. I'm learning better how to communicate those expectations and how to work with these things. So that's my story time. If you are a lawyer, please tell me what I should be putting in my contracts to avoid stuff like this. If you are a fellow, small business owner who does similar things, let's trade secrets, let's gossip, let's name drop. I work really hard to put on good events for my community, and I want to work with people who also want that. So if you're someone in London who does, let's work together. In the studio, I have freshly painted nails. The staining isn't looking that bad on camera actually, so maybe I'll still get to do my knitting tutorial. I'm finishing up video tutorials for the next issue of Material Girls, so all the patterns are done and making the video tutorials that'll go on YouTube. Then I'm going to take pictures of the patterns so that I can format the magazine. It's getting sent to print next week. We have some really interesting features coming out in it that I'm really excited about, including like a longer article that someone wrote, which is really exciting because there's lots in there that I've been wanting to have in the magazine for a while. So keep your eyes peeled. I think it'll be a good one. It's lighter out later now, so Grace and I will probably take a walk and stop for a pint and shit talk and just have a great day. She's done! Full spin! I've been working on this for a good 4 months. I was looking back at pictures of like when I cast on it was January. Here we are, end of April. I think that's the longest I've like worked on a sweater before. So this is DK weight yarn, which this is my first time doing like a full sweater in that. I've done other projects, but never a full sweater. So very patient of me. I learned a lot. I learned how to do brioche stitch. Couldn't do that before this. Got increases on these bottom up sleeves that I seemed to get all the brioche matched up. You can't see, but the floats of my tarsha on the inside are beautiful. Surprise, surprise, turns out it feels good to put some good craftsmanship into your work and do it all just like in a slow, very nice, professional way, because I'm so excited with how it turned out. It does make me feel a little bit like ready for a ski vacation, even though it is springtime outside. We'll see. I'll make an excuse for it because I worked so hard. I'm ready to debut it. I'll link the pattern down below, but it is the heart sweater by Knitting Kiki, and I believe it was originally like a vintage Norwegian pattern, but I'm linking the English translation. What's up next? We will see. This is like the only long-term project I've had going for most of winter, obviously, as I do like other Material Girls projects throughout that. I feel like since we're heading into spring, it's like not the right time to start a new knit sweater or something, even though I have yarn for some that I didn't get to this winter because I was working on this one. So I think it might be a bit of a sewing moment for me. I have some dresses that I want to make for the summer, some dresses and skirts. So that might be kind of where my whips are headed next. This is my Subversive Stitch book review. Very exciting. I feel like this was a long time coming. It's been on my to-read list for years, and every time I talk about craft and politics on the internet, people recommend it. It seems like it's just a really classic cornerstone of the community, and after reading it, I absolutely understand why it's a classic. The subtitle is Embroidery and the Making of the Feminine, so it does focus heavily on embroidery, but I think a lot of it is very relevant to general discussions of craft and feminism. The author goes through Western history and the way that embroidery has been intertwined with women's lives for hundreds of years, and comments on such pivotal points in that. Like, it starts out with talking about when craft and fine art started to split in Western conception as being two different things and what was put into which camp and why. Then you watch those categories kind of transform throughout the years as she talks about different attitudes that people had. Embroidery sits at such an interesting, nuanced place in the craft versus fine art debate because I think most people would define craft as being something that is beautiful and handmade, but has a practical purpose. And most embroidery doesn't. It's usually decorative. So in some respects, it really relates to fine art. And in others, it's so relevant to the history of craft because it is historically women dominated, because women were subjugated to it, makes it so political. Her main argument and the thing that she illustrates throughout the book is how embroidery and being a woman became so intertwined that it was basically synonymous. Because I think sometimes in craft we talk about embroidery being woman dominated and it being something that only women do. She was saying, no, it's further than that. Like, there have been times throughout history when embroidery has been so intertwined with womanhood that you were not a woman unless you were embroidering. The author describes embroidery becoming more than just a hobby for women, but an integral part of their womanhood, because so much of it was tied up in morality that it was seen as a sign of patience and being docile and being just like a pure, innocent woman if you were able to sit and focus on embroidery for an entire day. And they were expecting, I mean, very young girls to be able to do this. Women were expected to create certain types of embroidery, send certain moral messages with the embroidery that they were creating, whether that was through some of the little ethical poems that were put on samplers for children to learn little lessons, or imagery. A lot of it was biblical. And the content of a woman's embroidery really reflected on her as a woman. I found so interesting in this book is how the author weaves in examples of actual embroidered pieces as kind of evidence of what the attitudes of women in the day were. And she says in there, you know, for a lot of history, women weren't documenting their lives. They didn't really have access to that. And obviously, like, historians and scholars weren't documenting the lives of women because it wasn't seen as important. But because embroidery was something so physical that women had, we have examples of things that women were making, and it can give us a clue into what the attitudes of the time were. And this is where like the subversiveness of the stitch comes in, because she gives examples of like women being told to make biblical imagery on their embroidery, but instead of doing things like of Jesus and his disciples, they'll do things about strong female heroines, like when Esther hung Haman or Judith beheaded Holofernes, like the incredible heroic acts of women in the Bible. And that being kind of as a way that they could subvert that assignment and say, these are the stories that I'm reading and want to recreate and reflect. Some of the more text-based embroidery that we still have access to can show also a bit about the debates about womanhood that were happening, what was considered popular, what was considered controversial. So it's really amazing that this exists as a primary source into what women were doing and thinking and creating. So The Subversive Stitch by Rosika Parker, one of my favorite reads of this little craft politics YouTube series so far. Which brings me to a cool find that I found on the internet, which is a website called bookshop.org. This is not sponsored. I just stumbled across this website and think it's cool. It's an online bookstore, but it allows you to benefit independent bookstores with your purchases. So how it works is when you go on, 10% of whatever you order will go into a pot that is then split amongst any participating independent bookstore. If you already have an independent bookstore that you know you specifically want to support, you can add that to your account and 30% of your purchase will go straight to that bookstore. So I set up a bookshop account, which is linked down below. I'm going to recommend some of the books I've been reading in there. And some of the ones that I've read, like especially in the last 2 videos, I think, aren't on there because they're from more like independent publishers that I don't think are registered on the site, unfortunately. So not everything will be on there, but some will be on there. And if you want to check that out, it is an affiliate link. So I'll get a few cents if you order from my shop, but that doesn't take anything away from what the bookshops make. Otherwise I would not be doing it. We're at the end of April right now, and I'm feeling a little bit stressed because Material Girl's issue needs to like come together and get printed. It's coming out in early May and I need some solid hours to just like finish it up. I feel like so many things have just been popping up, which is good. They're all exciting things. I have some fun, exciting things to announce soon, including that Material Girls Club is gonna do a session in Paris. You know that earlier in this video I was talking about like being super disappointed by a workshop situation, and I guess when one door closes, another one opens, because Material Girls Club is gonna do a launch party in Paris, which is so cool. And I was so excited to get that opportunity, and things are already in the works. And probably just a few days after this video goes live, there's gonna be a ticket link. So if you are in the area, please come hang out. Finishing the next issue, getting next workshops ready, gonna find another book to read for the next video, gonna move on to some sewing projects, lots of stuff in the works. Very excited to keep sharing it with you. So make sure to give a like and subscribe if you enjoyed seeing this video, and I'll see you in the next one.